Hi everyone, my name's Electric Donkey, and today we are back on the No Man's Sky type project we've got going. So I've kind of been a bit stupid, so let me give a bit of background information. Now my main computer that I built around Christmas time, I've had to send one of the RAM sticks back because it was faulty, in return for a replacement basically, and that's basically mean I've had to go back to my laptop, which was all well and good because I transferred some of the files over before I did it, so everything was going to be fine. I'd just do it on my laptop and have a little bit of background noise. But when I went to load this up today, I realised I'd copied over the wrong one because I made a copy for myself. I'd copied over the copy which wasn't the right one, which kind of left me now with a halfway through project which I can't now do a proper inventory tutorial on. So instead we're going to do something that I was going to do kind of later on, but it doesn't really matter. We can add this into our half finished game here. You can finish it, you can add it into your finished sort of game, and we'll go on to the inventory in the next video. But what we're going to be doing today is something I think is pretty cool, and that is the lighting and maybe torches as well if we get onto it, which is something that I find is quite interesting. It's not going to be a massively in-depth tutorial because we're only going to do it over 10 minutes, but I'm going to try and put as much detail as possible into it. So let's give it a go then. So this is going to be called Object Lighting. We're not going to have a sprite for it or anything, so for the time being that will do. Actually no, we need to add some events, so let me bring up my example here. So we're going to want a create event for the variables. We're going to want a step event for the actual the cycle of day and night, which is something else we're going to be doing. A game end we'll leave for the time being. I don't believe we need that. Let's see. Nope, we don't need that one. And then we need a draw event to draw the whole thing. So create event, we're simply going to have a few variables in. So what kind of things are we going to need? Well, here there's not actually that much. For the time being we're just going to ignore these bits here. They're not important for us, and we're just going to focus on this bit down here. So the first thing we're going to want to do is create a surface to draw from. Now to do this we're going to use global.light. Now what this is effectively going to do is create a black surface of which we can change the kind of properties of it to make it appear like we're creating lighting. It's kind of a cheating way of doing it, but it works pretty well, I'd say. So then we're going to pass in our variables room width and room height. Pretty simple stuff really. Next we're just going to do some sort of simple stuff. So count equals 0. That's simply because my alarms have broken for whatever reason. Even on my new computer they've still not really worked. There's someone at the door. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to make this count so we can add up to a certain variable and effectively use it as an alarm. Next we're going to use day length. That's pretty self-explanatory, just the length in steps of the room. And sun equals 0. I'm not even sure what that is, we'll have to find that out a bit later. So that's all we need for this bit. The next bit is going to be the step event. Now this is going to be a relatively chunky bit of code, and this is just going to tell us, and that's what you can see there, it's going to tell us what time it is in relation to the day cycle. So we're going to give it a name and title. It's going to be time of day, pretty self-explanatory, and we don't really need this bit because we've not added this in, but now all we're going to do is we're going to add 1 to the count. So every single step we're going to add 1 to this count, once again effectively using it as an alarm. Now if the count is less than 0, count equals 0, I'm not quite sure why I put that in there, but for some reason, whatever reason that is, it might go underneath the 0 mark, in which case we're going to round it back to 0. If the count also equals the day length, like that, then we're going to set the count back to 0 as well. So basically if we've hit the amount that we want to, we're going to reset the alarm, if you would. So if the count is bigger than the day length divided by 2. So if we're more than half of a day through and the count is less than the day length, because we don't want it to go over the day length effectively, because that wouldn't be quite right. So if we're halfway through the day, what do we want to do? Well, we're going to set the sun. Now this is where it comes in handy, because I think this is the alpha variable of which we are cutting out the kind of no, not that. I mean, it's the alpha channel in which the background we're drawing in over the top is, so how dark it is effectively in the room. So we're starting off at 0.5, that is our constant variable, and then we're going to use count minus day length divided by 2 divided by day length. Now that seems quite big and complicated, but really it's quite straightforward. We're taking this constant, so 0.5, so it can never really go above 0.5. Then we're taking our current count, which is going to be, in this case, bigger than half of the day length, half of day length being 150. So it's going to be bigger than 150, the count. Then we're going to take that away from what half is. So let's say our count is 160. We're going to say 160, take away that. So it's how far past half the day we are. And we're going to divide that by the day length, effectively giving us a nice easy way of calculating an alpha value. Else, if the count is less than the day length, then we're basically going to do the opposite. If we're on the other side of the day cycle, then we want to start making it a little bit darker. And to do this, we're going to use sun equals count divided by day length. And once again, these are quite big chunky things and they're quite hard to explain, but in the long run it works, so just go with it. You can fiddle around with it if you want, and basically this bit is controlling the brighter side of the day, if you would, and that's the darker side of the day. Now that's all pretty simple so far, but now we've got the big draw event. Now this is pretty chunky, but it's not too bad, I wouldn't say. Now I believe this was one I copied off the GameMaker forums, this little bit of draw event here. So if it is and you recognise it, just drop a link down below and I will credit that person. So basically we're going to draw our smooth lighting. So we're going to use a few variables. So var AA. Now this isn't really how I like to do things. I kind of prefer to do it one by one, but you know, this also works. So we're going to set AA equals 200. That's the radius. Actually, you know what? Let's make this a little bit easier. Let's do R. So that's going to be the radius, and that's going to be F for fluidity. So fluidity equals 50. Relatively simple still, I'd say. You know, we're just setting a few variables there. Now we're going to set to our surface. Now this is basically telling GameMaker which surface we're going to want to start drawing on. Surface set target. That's not how you spell target. Global dot light. So that's just like you would with ini files, selecting which ini file you want to. That's basically the same. So once you've done that, we want to set our base alpha, and this is what we set before in the sun variable. So draw clear alpha, and I believe this draws it over the whole of the place. It draws over the whole screen with this alpha, so it's going to be C black. You could choose that to grey, I guess, if you wanted to as well. Maybe that would work. But I'm just going to use black because it works better. So then we're going to take away from the alpha around our player. So we're going to start doing it anyway. So start taking away around the player. Let's just do that. So once again, we're just initiating the drawing or the blending mode, if you would, and that's just going to be blend mode subtract. So we're going to subtract from this alpha that we've already set there. Let me scroll down a little bit then. So now what we're going to do is set the alpha for each individual pixel. So set the alpha to 1 divided by the accuracy. Now this is where it starts to get a little bit complicated, because this is starting to do for each individual pixel around our player, depending on how far away we are, is going to set the alpha to it. So if our fluidity is 50, then we're going to do 1 divided by 50. But if our fluidity is a bigger number, then we're going to have a more kind of fluid circle. So it's going to more anti-aliasing, if that makes sense. So as you get further away, it's going to feel smoother, but the circle then gets bigger. So it's kind of a balance. Those values that I used there work quite well. Now we're going to loop through. Let's just change that to proper English. Loop through our circles. Pretty simple for loop here. For I equals 0, I is less than or equal to our fluidity. I plus equals, that's like that. I plus plus. Oops. Okay, so that's just going to loop through every single, however fluid we want it to be, that many times. And this is going to mean 50 is how many circles we're going to have around our player. So for each one we're going to draw a circle, and for each one we're going to change the alpha value to be a certain amount, so it gets fluider and fluider and fluider as you go out. So draw a circle for each fluidity pixel. Makes sense. It's a little bit complicated, to be honest. It's not exactly easy to get the grasps of, but once you have got the idea, it's quite a simple thing actually. So now with the player, we're going to draw a circle, and I've actually done this really badly here because we just need to put x, y, and then this is where we've got our big equation. So what we're doing is we're going to take the radius of our circle minus the radius divided by the fluidity times I. To be honest, I'm not even going to start to go into what this all means, but effectively this gives us our radius, and the long and short of it is we're going out 1 each time for our radius, but in a more accurate way to do with our fluidity. Once again, it's something you can just play around with and do whatever you want with, but for main purposes it works, so just stick with it. I think that was more found by trial and error than anything. So now we're going to set the alpha back to 1. These are just the resets basically. So draw set alpha. Technically, if all of your other code is clean, you won't need these. If you've always set the alpha back to whatever alpha value you want before you draw something, it'll work, but most of the time I personally don't. So if I'm say drawing a object, I don't tend to do that, but it's always good practice to set everything back to normal afterwards. Otherwise you could end up with some weird things later on that you don't really know why's happened. Basically you're ending up with errors in the future by not resetting it. So finally we're going to reset the surface to draw on. Surface, reset target, and that's pretty simple. Now other than that, we have to actually draw everything. So we've got everything we've got the most part of it drawn, all the circles, but we haven't drawn the actual surface itself. So draw the surface. If surface exists, which it technically should do, but this is once again just a little check to make sure we don't get any errors. Once again, good practice. So if the surface itself exists, we're going to draw that surface. Once again, pretty self-explanatory, but we're going to do an x and y of 0. Obviously the surface goes over the whole thing, so it doesn't really matter. And then for the else, again, good practice, but is it really necessary? No, it isn't necessary. So now if we go ahead and drop that in the room, we should, fingers crossed, have a working lighting system. Obviously we're not going to put it in the kind of planet room. We're going to use it in the actual room which our planet is being generated in, because it would be a bit weird if it was in the other room. Also the player's not in that room, so we'll chuck up an error. So if we go ahead and drop in, we need to wait a little bit because it takes a while for it to actually kick in. But you can see there we have a lighting that would maybe even be a little bit big for this. So you can go ahead and fiddle around basically in this lighting. If you go into the create event, you can, or not even the create event, the step event. Nope, the draw event. There we go. You can change the radius, so maybe we change that to 100 and we change the fluidity to like 25, half the values. And that would pretty much work. Now, overall, I think I've not really explained that great, but if you do have any issues understanding it maybe, or just getting the code down, then just drop a comment, send me an email, whatever you want, or if you join my Discord channel, then basically I can help you whenever you need it. So I kind of recommend it if you're watching a lot of the tutorials. So as you can see, that's a little bit better. For some reason it's oval shaped, and I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But that is basically it. We made a lighting system, and you can see it changes from day to night and night to day. If you wanted to make it darker, what you'd do is you'd go into the object lighting and the draw event, and you change our not draw event, maybe it's step event. You change this constant here to be higher, I think. I'm not sure, but higher. So if you wanted it to be a lot darker, you change it to like 1, and that would be super dark. That would be pitch black actually. And you can just go ahead and fiddle around with those values. A lot of them are relatively simple dynamic variables. You can just change around and fiddle around. So I'd encourage you to go ahead and do that. I promise in the next video we'll go back to doing the inventory and the mining and placing and blocks and stuff. Fingers crossed anyway, if I'll have my computer back working. I can't really do anything about it because it doesn't have any RAM, so it isn't working. But anyway, for the time being, that will be it. If you liked the video, remember to like, subscribe, or just whatever you guys want to do, and I will talk to you in the next one.